Good evening, viewers, and welcome once again to the Limit Racing. You join us for the Division 1 Italian Grand Prix, round 5 of this 15 race first season. Tonight, your commentary team is me, once again, bigly joined by TJ in 1992. It is the Temple of Speed that the drivers tackle tonight with just 11 corners. This 3.6 mile long circuit just north of Milan really does test the cars in a straight line. Drivers have two DRS zones tonight, and one of those will be particularly useful in aiding overtaking down the main straight and into turn 1. And it is a good job this circuit does have some overtaking points, because TJ, tonight it is our first ever sprint race in TTL, and this old school no nonsense circuit is surely going to deliver two brilliant races tonight.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what tonight delivers. It's as you mentioned, it's the Temple of Speed. It's all about how quick you can get your car down the straight. Who's got the less downforce on? Who's been a bit caution through some of the harsh corners, perhaps through turns 1 and 2, and through I can't remember the corner names. Uh, 8, 9, and 10, where you've got the very quick left-right handers. It's Yeah, I'm looking forward to this one.
Yeah, definitely. Could not have picked a much better track to have our first sprint race here in TTL. And of course, with running a sprint race, then we only have a short qualifying session for the drivers to contend with. Of course, that is going to change TJ their outlook when it comes to this qualifying session. That's probably why we're seeing a lot of drivers out on track pretty early on.
Yeah, it is. It's normal where drivers in full quali or perhaps sit in the pits for the first 5-10 minutes, just see what other drivers are setting. But with the 18-minute short quali, drivers need to get out, try to set the decent laps. Obviously, it's not all about quali, but there is points up for grabs in the sprint race, and you want to try to set yourself up for the sprint to try and get a good position ready for the main race.
Yep, definitely could not agree more with that then. And to coincide with that, we've got Groundsy then out on track already at the moment. 3 drivers then on a hot lap. TJ, if you want to follow Groundsy's lap round.
Yeah, picks his braking point up for turns 1 and 2, hits the curve very nicely. Bit tentative on turn 2 there, but he gets his foot down really quick. And once again, it's just all about putting your foot to the floor and build up speed. And it looks like he's backed out of his lap here, Groundsy has.
Yep, already choosing then to back off early on, and that then giving the other drivers now an opportunity to capitalise on that. We're on board now with Tiddlewink then as he comes through the first sector now. And of course we've got 15 minutes to go here. Only one driver still in the pits. That's Prem, Tiddlewink's teammate at the moment. But thinking about the championship at the moment, TJ, of course, points are on offer tonight for the sprint race as well. Do you think we'll see drivers prioritise the points really in the sprint race, or whether they'll be a bit tentative and try and do better in the feature race later on?
I think every point matters, to be honest. I do think the guys towards the top of the table should be aiming to try and get decent points in the sprint race. I mean, it is only, I think it's 8th first, and it drops down by 1 point down to 8th. So if you don't get a point, it's not too disastrous, but it could be the matter of winning the championship or losing it when it comes to the final round.
Yep, definitely. As we've already got some times on the board, then the 2 AlphaTauri drivers both setting their laps early on, but they've been the slowest out of the bunch so far. Then it's Diamond Douchey then for Alpine that's paving the way at the moment in this qualifying session. A 120.2 from him, 3,000ths then up on midfield Maestro at the moment, and doing a stellar job of going through the chicane at turn 1. Junuve now back onto provisional pole with a 119.9, then the first driver into the 119s. We know he's definitely got pace. And a driver, TJ, I was just about to mention, LAR Lives back in the Aston Martin tonight. He had a fantastic couple of opening rounds, but unfortunately has been absent since then. A 23.9 from him then puts him P11, P12 now as Drobel goes fastest. Do you think this is a driver really that can challenge for the top 3, even though we've not seen him for a couple of weeks?
I think so, yeah. Perhaps he just games off back into swing speeds, a little bit rusty. As you mentioned, it is mainly straight to track, but you've still got the tricky corners through turns 1 and 2 and through the Ascari chicane. So there is points where you can lose it. Perhaps you're just getting the feel for the track currently, but I do expect him to be challenging the top three.
Definitely. And I would not be surprised then to see him improve on that time. Another driver racing with us for the first time this evening, EULR Chris, then into P2 right alongside Drobler initially. Then this TJ, this is a driver that, as I mentioned, is here for the first time this week. What are you expecting from Chris, and what do you think he's expecting coming into this event?
Well, looking from the Discord chat, Chris was saying he wasn't feeling up for it. He was. I don't know whether he was trying to hide a bit of pace he's got here, but he definitely wasn't feeling it. But to put himself P2, 2 tenths behind Drobel, who we know is very quick, is very respectable from the Red Bull driver. I mean, perhaps come and put a fresh set of boots on and see if you can get provisional pole.
Definitely. And Magusa at the moment, our championship leader as it stands after 4 races then. P15 at the moment and invalidating them through the Ascari chicane. So struggling early on, Magusa. And of course with the shortened qualifying then, only 11.5 minutes to go. Do you think that's going to pressurise the drivers much more in this session?
Yes, I think it does. I mean, it is hard to invalidate around Monza, but I think the most tricky part of the track is the Ascari chicane. If you try to take too much curb, it can unsettle the car and perhaps push a little bit too wide and you hit track limit. So I do think the drivers are pressurized a little bit here. But I do think we're still going to see a really good quality as Chris has decided to go for a second push lap.
Chris then looking to get the most out of that set of tyres. We're with Lexus at the moment then, who's back racing once again in TTR this week, partnering Mag User then in the house. Currently P20 as it stands, so it's quite tight though in that middle of the pack. A couple of tenths would seem improving ahead of LAR Lives now, who is in P6 provisionally for now, but of course with 10 minutes to go the track is only going to get better. Another driver that's racing with Division 1 tonight then, we've got LWS Yorkie for the Alfa Romeo team TJ, and he's filling in tonight of course. You might have, those keen-eyed viewers, noticed he is a Division 2 driver, but from what I hear TJ, pace perhaps being evaluated for a step up.
Yeah, that's right. LWS Yorkie is, I suppose you could say, perhaps dominating tier two. I mean, from the standings point of view, he doesn't like he's dominating. But he's got fantastic pace and has been very unfortunate in the past races with teammates holding him up in the pit lane. And just being really unlucky with the strategy, to be honest. But yeah, he deserves to be in Division 1, having a trial and see where he goes. I do expect him to be pushing the potential top 10 here.
We've just seen him very, very out of shape coming out of the Sky chicane, but kept his foot to the floor, hoping to not lose too much time then as he comes around the Parabolica now, and you have to be careful and not run too far onto that AstroTurf on the outside to avoid invalidation. And as you predicted then TJ, he's exactly in 10th place, just behind his teammate for this evening, Groundsy then, with Alfa Romeo 9th and 10th at the moment.
It's almost like a tell the future. Yeah, that's a fantastic back from Yorkie. The challenge will to be pretty much splitting the pack in his first outing in Division 1. And he just, as I said, there's still 8.5 minutes to go here. The track's going to get quicker, so hopefully we'll see him improve and perhaps move himself further up with red.
Yeah, fingers crossed for the Alfa Romeo boys. And another team then that might need to just gonna hurry up slightly. Revengezilla and Sniz then for AlphaTauri this evening. Revengezilla, we know, has had pace in Division 1 this season, winning a race in Portimao a couple of weeks ago. So, I mean, you'd expect both these drivers, TJ, to be essentially pushing the top 10 as well.
Yeah, definitely. I am on board with Revenge. I know he's going through a scar. He's taking as much curb as he can. He's taking that beautifully, actually. getting a slipstream from the Alfa Romeo ahead of him. Hopefully, Alfa Romeo doesn't hold him up as he comes down to the final corner. But he's picking up a fantastic slipstream here. Picks his braking point out. Very careful, avoids going wide there. Perhaps lost a bit of time for the line he took. Over the line, puts himself P10.
Yeah, bit of an improvement there in terms of both time and position, but with still over 7 minutes then left on the clock in this qualifying session. Expect drivers to get ever quicker as we see Drobel then go even faster, 119.2. This is a driver really, TJ, in some form at the moment, especially over one lap. And I mean, we've seen it in races as well. He can dominate. Been a little bit unlucky in TTL, but you'd have to put a lot of money, if you were a betting man, on him winning the race this evening.
Yeah, definitely. As you say, he's been very unfortunate, but yeah, he's in some fantastic form currently, and it's going to take something really special to beat that, I think, at this point. Quick shout out to Mag User, who just popped himself into P3, just behind EU LR Chris. Another fantastic spot from Mag User, who's showing his form as well.
Yeah, definitely our championship leader then into P3. Tiddlewink crosses the line slightly slower than his previous effort, and so doesn't move from 8th place. We've got Henkers on an out lap as we have a slightly bit of a lull in the session as the drivers then look to come in and get their set of boots on for their final runs. And Johnny Vane actually pops into 2nd place for McLaren then. So TJ, really looking at the times, what we've seen so far, a little bit of spread at the top, and then we've got drivers bunched together really from about P7 to P15. So, I mean, it's anyone's game at the moment, but if you had to pick someone for pole, apart from the obvious in Drobel, do you think anyone can challenge him, and who is best to challenge him at this point?
I mean, it's really hard to judge this currently. I do think EULR Chris has got more pace. I was on board when he was pushing a second time, and he was going quicker through sector 1. But had a mishap in sector 2, so perhaps he could be challenging. Magyus is probably a name I'd throw in there as well. We know he has got the pace in him. But I'm going to put Chris or Magyus to be challenging for pole.
Yeah, that's not a bad shout. And Red Bull would very much like Chris to be challenging Drobel for pole then when it comes to the standings. But we'll get onto that a little bit later on. And as Lexus is currently 2.5 tenths up on his lap, this is enough at the moment to put him somewhere in the P7, P8 range, depending on this final sector then. Looked like he handled Ascari very well, and he comes through the Parabolica now. Foot not quite all the way down, but gets on the power quite early then, able to take quite a bit of speed through the corner and crosses the line. And it is then P7 for Lexus, a much improved showing, and both Hasses now inside the top 7.
Yeah, fantastic from Lexus. I still do think he's got a bit of extra time in there. He has probably just about got time to get back around, put a fresh set of boots on, and get himself back out again. But yeah, the track is quiet as people are perhaps wanting to time where the final run is. We've got Jock who's coming around the Parabolica now. Looks like he's backed out actually. Yeah, he's got no fuel. So I think it's Junior Vane that's on the lap now.
Yeah, just riding with Johnny Vane then through the first Lesmo up to the second. Now he has got a car ahead of him. He's got no teammate this evening, so he won't be able to choreograph a toe, but he's getting a nice little cheeky toe here from the Haas then. And he comes up now to the Ascari chicane. He's just under half a tenth up on his previous efforts, so not enough to challenge Drobel at the moment, but it might solidify that P2 then for the sole McLaren in the field tonight, then coming down towards the Parabolica now. I think we've got about 5 minutes left of the session. I can't see, unfortunately, it's actually 3.5. The yellow flag obstructing that, and Johnny Vane backing off then and coming into the pits, TJ.
Yeah, so he's perhaps putting a fresh set on, getting himself back out. Perhaps a smart thing to do here. I am on board with Chris again, who's just coming through Lesmo 1. He has got a car right in front of him here. Don't know if it's on the lap or not, but coming through Lesmo 2. catching it ever so slightly. Yeah, the car gets out the way. Gets a really good exit here. DRS wide open all the way down to the sky. It was just over about half a tenth and back to one. So we'll see if he's getting any time. Getting a little bit of time, but still enough to be challenging Drobel here. Taking the sky very well there. On the exit, actually, perhaps took a little bit too much curve, almost lost the V, but did a fantastic job of holding it all the way down to Parabolica now. All about picking your point out and risking how wide you want to go. Takes it nice and tight. Oh, loses the back end.
He does lose the back end, and he's around off the final corner. Does well to keep it out of the wall and out of that gravel trap on the far side. Does come into the pits then with 2 minutes 20 on the clock. It'll be a big turnaround if he wants to have another effort then to try and break into the top 2. And here's Lives then at the moment. I think he's a race winner and a podium sitter, 7/10 down though through the first sector, so this is not going to be a particularly quick time from him. We've got Tiddlewink coming through sector 2, 4/10 up on his best effort at the moment then. So Tiddlewink looking to break into the 119s and potentially top 4 for the race. Of course, only the sprint race this sets the grid for. The sprint race will set the grid then for the feature later on. I don't think they call it a feature, I think they call it a main race, so I'll try and use the correct terminology. As Tiddlewink does cross the line then, not quite enough to get into the top 4. P5 for him and his Williams, a 120.1, and you'd imagine that's his last effort of the session, unless he looks to try and take those tyres on a second run.
Yeah, I think so at this point. I mean, I have noticing drivers that are trying to get 2 or 3 laps out the tyres, so I don't know what advantage that's giving people, but we'll wait and see as Revenge Sailor takes the run off into turns 1 and 2. Perhaps misses braking before trying to get out the way of someone. But yeah, we've got a lot of people on out laps and starting laps. I'm trying to see who's next coming over the line.
I think it's LWS Yorkie who was half a second up through sector 2, then and into P5, puts Tiddlewink down to P6. Great effort from him in that Alfa Romeo, then perhaps staking a claim as to why he should be considered then for a Division 1 drive. Not a bad effort at all there. And it looks like there has been a bit of an incident then coming out of the Ascari chicane. I think Jock was backwards on the track. He's now missing a front wing on that Alpine, and I think, unfortunately for him, was it Prem that hit the side of him somewhere there as he was spun round?
Yeah, it was like I jumped on board and Prem hit him. It looks like they were battling down the back straight, and Prem just hit into Jock and spun him into a wall. I'm not quite sure what has happened between the 2 drivers there.
We'll see if we can get any insight into that then. Perhaps after the session, Revenger tries to make the line for another run and makes it with a couple of seconds to go then as they come over the line thick and fast. EULR Chris won't improve. The checkered flag waves for his Red Bull then. We've got Seneca, I think, who's coming into the pits, and he won't improve on his time either. And then LWS Yorkie, we know, just set that 20.1. So not much improvement here in the times at the end of the session. What can Henkers do? He's 3/10 up at the moment and will be then the next car to cross the line, coming around the final corner now. And can he get his Aston Martin into the top 10 for the sprint race? Crosses the line, and it is into P10 for Henkers then. And I think with that is the grid then. I don't think anyone else is going to improve. Lexus is trying his best, but he was 8/10 down in the second sector. Doesn't improve on his time. And as I said, I think that's it for the grid then. So it is Drobel who is going to be on pole for the sprint race, alongside Johnny Vane with his teammate EULR Chris in P3 then. And the run here to turn 1 is a long one, TJ, and we could see some broken hearts then coming out of the first sector.
Yeah, I think so. It's obviously a long way. You've worn your tyres up, you potentially got a long way till the grade 7 forms back up. You shoot down to turn 1, get up to speed of just under probably 200 miles per hour. Cold tyres, cold brakes. All it takes is someone to miss a brake point and it cause carnage, and hopefully the drivers are aware of it. But yeah, I do think we might see a heartbreak in the sprint race for sure.
Yep. And of course, then drivers have to weigh up making the extra place up in the sprint for their starting position for the main race, or whether to sit tight and wait for an opportunity later on. But there is your qualification then from our short qualifying and our only qualifying session. Tonight it is Drobel then, as I mentioned, on pole for the sprint with Johnny Vane, EULR Chris then making up the top three. Matt User, Yorkie, Tiddlewink Diamonds, midfield, Lexus and Henkers round off the top 10. Then that late lap from Henkers, then putting Revenge Zilla down to P11. I know he's got some pace, especially in race conditions around Monza, so he'll be looking to get into the points of both the sprint and the main race. It's then Groundsy, Jock, Livs, who must have some more in that Aston Martin. We know he's got much more pace than that. Prem, Sneers and Seneco then rounding off the top 17 in qualifying. As we go into the race, there'll be a very short break while the drivers just set their fuel and strategies and whatever tyres they choose to go on. So while we do that, TJ, we can have a look then at the standings so far. We can, if they appear properly, here we go, 1 second. It will come up. Oh, I've lost them. There we go. This is what happens when I try and fix the chat. There we go. There we go. So, we have, as I mentioned, got Matt Hughes then in the lead of the championship so far. So he should be happy with that P4, you'd imagine, TJ. But it is Drobel then, P3 in those standings at the moment, on pole for the sprint race. And what does he do then? He's currently 15 points off the lead of the championship. I mean, does he try and get those extra points in the sprint if he's challenged even down into turn one, or does he try and just think about the race later on?
I do think he tries to think about the race. Obviously, if down to turn one, if he has got the space, go for it and keep yourself in P1. But I wouldn't try to do anything aggressive. It's all about keeping your head. If you lose a place or two, you lose a place and two, you gain. With the pace of showing over 1 lap, he's definitely got the pace to pull it back. So I do think he plays it safe for sprint race and perhaps goes for it in the main.
Yeah, and I mean, we think about the constructors as well. It's all very tight at the top, isn't it? It's probably tight actually from P1 to about P6, P7. You know, there's only 15 points between Aston Martin and Red Bull, so it really is anyone's for the taking at the moment. We're a third of the way through this season, and you'd have to say Red Bull, after that qualifying performance, then TJ, with EULR Chris filling in tonight, you have to say they're looking good to come away with some good points from this event.
Yeah, they are. They're looking very good, and there's a high possibility here, depending how the Aston Martin boys do and all the other teams do, that Red Bull could be taking lead of the constructors and have a driver top of of the driver championship as well.
Yeah, definitely couldn't agree more with that. Object Fungus, of course, P4 in the driver's standings, but unfortunately unable to race tonight, I think, to the relief of some of the drivers in the field then, as everyone knows just how quick he is on his day to still be P4 in the championship despite only being able to attend a couple of rounds so far. Really does shine just how quick he can be. And of course, at the moment in the championship, McLaren P9 so far. They've only got Johnny Vane this evening, Collateral Lads, who's taken the full-time McLaren drive then off IXR Ethan after he departed the league earlier this week. I mean, you'd have to say things aren't looking too good for them at the moment, but hopefully, if you think if Collateral Lads can start racing from next week onwards, we could start to see them rise up the table.
Yeah, definitely. I think Junior Vane's been very unlucky in his first couple of races. I don't think he's had a teammate once actually. And if he has, they haven't obviously scored points. So yeah, it'd be good to see the McLaren team move up. Same as the Williams team as well. They haven't had a good start to the season. But hopefully we can see them start pulling some points of Tillwink in there. But yeah, it's all very close.
It's all very close. In the standings, it's all very quiet at the minute on the track. Then 10 seconds until we get underway in this sprint race. And I think we've got two more sprints after this. This season, I
Yes,
think
we
we have
have, yeah.
three, haven't we? So it's the first of three, and we are waiting them for the drivers to take us on the formation lap. And interestingly, then we can have a look at the tyres. You'd expect most of them to have chosen the same compound of tyre, but three drivers then chancing it and going a different way to the rest of the grid. They are Groundsy, Jock, and Prem. Then all of those in the bottom half of the field. TJ, do you think they're just taking a risk because of where they are, really, just trying to make up some place? It's only a 9-lap sprint, so it's very short.
Yeah, I think they are taking a risk. I think they want to try and make some positions up for the main race. Although even though it is a 9-lap race around Monza, I do think them soft tyres will struggle to get to the end. The soft tyre on this game just isn't durable at all. And when even though Monza is just full of straights, you have still got the tight corners of 1s, 2, and the Ascari chicanes and Parabolica as well, which takes the tyre life out of you. So yeah, you've got to make some really early positions up and hope they can stick in someone's DRS to continue pull them along, really.
Yeah, very much so. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Jock on those soft tyres hasn't served that 5-place grid penalty he got for the contact in qualifying. So I think he still has to serve that going into the main race, which obviously might play a factor as well, as the drivers are about to come into the Parabolica then, and they're all very well disciplined this week, TJ, and all very close together on track, so Drebel won't have to wait too long, it looks like, on the grid.
Yeah, very nice to see. I think all the drivers know what can happen down to turn 1, so you want to try to keep temperature into them tyres, and you don't want you don't want the other drivers getting cold tyres, because that could result in them missing a break point, sliding across the track potentially. So yeah, very well done from the Division 1 drivers.
Yeah. As Drobel then puts a cycle through those tyres as he pulls into his grid box, perfect there then from the Red Bull man, and Seneco will bring the drivers up the rear then. So it is a 9-lap sprint around Monza. We've had some absolutely fantastic racing in Division 1 so far this season. 5-way fights for wins at certain tracks. And will we be treated to the same here then, as we wait for the red lights to get us underway here for round 5 sprint at Monza. And it is lights out then, and away we go. And Drobel gets a decent start then for Red Bull, but in the second phase, and John Uvain powers ahead in his McLaren. Magnus as well, looking from P4 up the inside of John Uvain, forces him onto the chicane, but just enough space between the drivers to carry on. But it's been a wretched start then for Pulsitor Drobel.
Yeah, that was disastrous from the Red Bull drive. I'm not quite sure what happened in the second phase there, but he's just been swallowed up and down to P7 currently. But it's nice to see all drivers really make it on turn 1 without minimal contact and damage by the looks of it.
Yeah, we have been really treated to some clean racing, as I mentioned, in Division 1 this season. It looks like, for the most part, for now anyway, it is status quo in that regards. Then John Uvain leads the way on this sprint race here in Monza. EULR Chris behind him, and he's made up a place from the start as well. Interestingly enough, the actual graphic for the tyres doesn't even consider the soft tyres making the distance. So it'll be interesting to see how those runners get on then, as Groundsy's made up places already. And an instant at the back for Sniz there, TJ.
Yeah, he just lost it coming through the sky chicane, hit the curb, spun round. Luckily, no one made contact with him, but that's disastrous from Sniz and the AlphaTauri team, that is.
Yeah, definitely. Then Sniz right to the back of the queue. Then it's going to go a long way to try and make some places up for that starting grid for the main race. Here's Magnus then up the inside of EULR Chris, then into turn 1, who then got a compromised exit because of Mac Hughes' overtake, this might invite Diamond Douchey then to have a look, and I don't think he's going to be quite close enough as we get to the chicane here, and he isn't. He will have Chris very much able to power ahead there then, and keep P3 for now. Drobel's recovery drive then has started. He's gone from 8th to 6th, TJ, and he's all over the back of Tiddlewink by the looks of things.
Yeah, he is. With DRS, he definitely have me. I am going right on board with him as he comes down to see a Sky chicane. Tiddlewink straight line speed is dominant over Drobel, though Tiddlewink has pulled away going into the Sky, so Drobel will need DRS, although he's getting a fantastic exit through the Sky chicane, but yeah, Tiddlewink's straight line speed is just too dominant for Red Bull currently.
Yeah, very slippery in a straight line for that Williams at the moment. And of course, Drobel will, on the next lap, have access to that drag reduction system as we go on to lap 3, but he might not need it here as he pulls at the inside of Tiddlewink, then using that battery to try and get ahead of the Williams man. He'll have the line on the inside of turn 1. Can Tiddlewink hold it around the outside for 2? He's going to give it his best shot. Very good racing between the drivers once again, and a clean overtake for Drobel and into P5.
Yeah, that was fantastic. Nice late braking from Drobel there. Nice respectable space between the two drivers as well. Very nice to watch that was. As we continue up and down, York is at the back of Lexus here as I think it's Sniz has had a problem. Yeah, Sniz has. I'm not quite sure what Sniz has done there.
I think
it's a weird place to drop the car.
Yeah, I think he's clipped the inside curb and hit the wall. Let's try and grab a Kenkers to see just as what happened is his car gets cleared the minute the Aston Martin arrives to the scene, but no safety car then, and it does remain in the pits to the delight then of Johnny Vane, who still leads this sprint race, but at the moment Johnny Vane is being reeled in slightly by Matthews, and he is within that 1 second, and both drivers then taking a wide line here. The championship leader then looking to try and take the lead of this sprint race.
Yeah, he is. All this is doing is pulling Chris that's right behind him as well. Chris is getting a fantastic drag down to turn 1. As we see Drobel making a move on Diamond to turn 1. Bit of wheel banging there potential, but Drobel gets the bare exit and moves up to P4.
Yeah, got a little bit snaky there in the traction zone, but managed to hold that Red Bull then. But this might invite Diamond then to have a look at trying to get P4 back as we go into the chicane. Ooh, and very, very close there in the braking zone. Drobel just leaving enough room, you'd say. Fantastic racing once again. Drobel then back up to P4. Of course, starting on pole for this race. Down to P8, but he's already halved the deficit then. Back up into the top 4.
Yeah, Drobel's dropped off the DRS here, but I imagine he'll go to scrap up to the top 3. The top 3 in the league around though currently they're pushing each other around. June Baines doing a fantastic job of holding Mag User. Although if Mag User gets a good exit here, I think Mag User will get down to turn 1. So wait to see what he does with Power Bolica. Mag User's taking a bit more of a wider line again, but not as wide as last time. He's going to vent to ZRS. Both ERS levels match each other. Mag User's got the better speed. Going to forward, yeah, that's fantastic. Tries to outbrake him. Junior Vane decides to want to brake late as well. Junior Vane compromises his exit through turn 2 there. I wonder if it's opened the door for Chris, whose ERS levels are pretty low. He's rinsed all his ERS. But the exit that Junior Vane had there has dropped him back quite a bit.
Yeah, 6 tenths back now then from the Haas, who now leads the race at just past the halfway point. That's the 3rd time in as many laps that we've seen one of the leaders make a move in that fashion down on the inside into turn 1. So it's clearly proving very effective then for some of those in the field at the moment. And if we break away from the top 4 now, we've got Lexus having a bit of a sniff then on Tiddlewink, looking to try and get a move done into the Ascari chicane, but he's not going to be close enough even with DRS assistance at the moment. And while all this is going on then, Groundsy on his, you'd have to say, pretty worn soft tyres at this point, looking to try and tag on and pick up some scraps in the background.
Yeah, he is. He is struggling. I'm soft tires for definite. We know he's got more pace than this. As you can tell for the parabolic now, he just hasn't got the pace at all. So it's a shame, but he'll be hoping for a mistake ahead of him. I was just on board with Revenge Zilla, who is all over the back of Jock, and Jock's over the back of Prem. We could see a potential double overtake here. I think Prem's definitely going to lose 2 places here. Revenge Zilla has to break early because of Jock ahead of him. Yeah, Jock. So Prem's just lost 2 places down to turn one. As Revenge Zilla and Jock are through. Revenge will be wanting to get on the back of Jockey and potentially have a look at a move up into P12. But I do think it's too much, too late to try to get these guys further ahead into potential points position.
Yeah, definitely then. Only 3 and a bit laps to go of this sprint race. Lives now into the top 10, and he's all over the back of LWS Yorkie then in the Alfa Romeo. Of course, no points for 9th or 10th. Of course, only points from 1st to 8th in the sprint race. So Tiddlewink at the moment occupying the last of those then. But once again, Chris very close to the back of Junu Vane, and now Drobel looking to get involved in the hunt then for the top 3. And Junu Vane looks really slow here, TJ. Looks like he's struggling with those tyres already.
Yeah, I think he has. His EOS levels are far superior to Chris's, though, and you can see him pulling away. I do wonder if Chris will try and make a late lunge here. No, I think he's too far back inside to break. But Drobel's going for a move on Chris now. So the Red Bull boys making a switch. I think Chris perhaps letting through there. Didn't really try to defend the position too much.
Yeah, good teamwork there from the Red Bull boys there. They knew that Chris probably was the slower of the 2 today, and he gets out the way for Drobel then, who can now try and attack the front 2 once again. This has been a great recovery drive from Drobel after that wretched start, but he's back into the top 3 then. And further down the pack, there is still action going on throughout the field then. This is great so far. Tiddlewink now down to P9 as Lives has got the jump into P8, so he occupies that points paying position now with 2 and a bit laps left to go here. But the top 4 again, TJ, are all very close on track as they come down to the Parabolica now.
Yeah, this is fantastic from the top 4. The absolute in a league of their own currently. Push each other to the limit. Obviously, we've got no track limit penalties currently. All drivers keeping it very clean. But Drobel over the back of Junior Vane here. And I do wonder that the pace we've seen Drobel do, whether he'll get the move down to turn 1. Even with DRS, he's catching the McLaren driver. Junior Vane looks to cut him. Yeah, Drobel has to back out there. Junior Vane planted the car across the other side. And Drobel had nowhere to go. He's going to try to look for a move here. That could have been disastrous. I mean, both McLaren and Red Bull sort of squeezed the Haas driver there, but luckily both got away with it.
Yeah, somehow Maguse then comes away from that one with the lead. Johnny Vane denying Drobel of his favoured overtaking move then on the inside into turn 1. They run status quo then, the top 4 on lap 8 out of 9, as we have still got to fight. It's anyone's guess as to who is going to win this one. Further back, Grounds, made up ground into P6 then. And in the background there, we just saw Tiddlewink get very out of shape then, and he's dropped out of DRS now on the Aston Martin ahead of him and let LWS Yorkie through in all of that. But these front 4 then are all still within a second of each other on the road, TJ, and they're going to get one more run down into turn 1 then.
Yeah, it's make and break at this point. All the EOS, the top 3 have got decent EOS level. Chris has dropped below, so I don't think he'll make a move. Junu Vane's going to try and get the move onto Maggie's down to turn 1. Gets the better run with DRS. Got the far superior speed. As Drobel looks like he's going to make a move as well. Maggie's potentially going to lose 2 positions here. Junu Vane breaks it. I think there's been a contact there. There's that. Yeah, I think Drobel hit the back of Junu Vane. Chris is looking for Sniffy on the outside of his Red Bull teammates. This is fantastic from the top 4 here. Other than the contact in turn 1, just Drobel moves to cut off Chris, I think. And it's status quo somehow as they continue. That's a fantastic move from Drobel there.
Johnny Vane just a little bit deep then into the chicane. It invited Drobel to make a move mid-corner. Surprisingly then, and Drobel up to P2 now then. Absolutely fantastic driving from him, and it almost looked like Ewell Chris was going to be in the lead after all that, but he remains P4 for now then. And while all that was going on, it looks like Tiddlewink and Jock then both had a moment on the last lap. Oh, it's Johnny Vane then is round and in the gravel. He's raced absolutely fantastically all sprint. Oh, and he's rejoined the track. Oh dear, he was a sitting duck there, unfortunately. Johnny Vane gets a 5-second time pace. Not sure that'll matter while all that's going on. Chris and Drobel are going to push each other to the line. Drobel does take the win in the sprint race, and EULR Chris making a move on Maguser then on the last lap. It's a Red Bull 1 and 2 then. Fantastic drive for them two, for the not only the constructors but for their races as well. Maguser a deserved P3 but led the majority, you'd have to say, of that sprint race. Diamond P4 lives up to P5 somehow, absolutely out of nowhere, that one. LWS Yorkie takes P6 with Midfield Maestro P7 and Groundsy P8 then, the point scorers for that race. That was TJ at the end. Junu Vane, unfortunately for him, it looked like he was going to take a top 3 finish, but round in the gravel, and now he starts P11 for the main race.
Yeah, that's disastrous from the McLaren driver. We know he's got the pace, so he can definitely make his way through the pack during the main race, but absolute heartbreak to be dropping it there and starting P11 when he was battling for the top position all race. But I mean, if a sprint race able to go by him for a fantastic main race here.
Yeah, we just had 9 laps of non-stop action really there throughout the field, so hopefully the main race is somewhat similar. And I've done the top 8, so we'll go past that now. Then Revengula P9 for the main race, Prem P10, Johnny Vane, who had that last lap spin, then P11, Lexus, Seneco, Henkers, Jock, and Tiddlewink and Sniz then, the bottom 3 all retiring in that sprint. And Jock and Tiddlewink on the last lap, retiring from the race. Unfortunately, then Tiddlewink was on for a top 10 start, but will have to start then in P16 as we have a short break then before the main race, and it all goes a bit quiet once again on track, TJ. But as you said, absolutely fantastic racing then in the sprint, and surely if we get something similar here, we're gonna be in for an absolutely fantastic race.
Yeah, definitely. That was. I mean, I don't think we stopped speaking all race there about the top 4, and even further back, there was battles up and down the grid. So yeah, anything like what we've just seen is going to be fantastic. The hopefully Joe will get to better start this time round. He definitely won't get bogged down to P7 by the end of turn 2. Same as Chris, well, he had a bad start and dropped a couple of places. So the Red Bull boys will definitely want to get their heads together, concentrate, and get a good start here down to turn 1.
Yeah, definitely they've got to work with each other. As we saw Drobel have a bit of a poor start then in the sprint. He'll be hoping to fix that fantastic recovery from 8th to take the win in the sprint, TJ. And whilst we are waiting to get underway in the main race, let's have your thoughts on who you think the driver of that sprint race was.
Oh, I mean, I I don't want to be controversial, but I think it's got to go to Strobel. He had a bad start. He went down to P7. He fought his way back through the grid, and I know Junior Vane dropped it on the through the Ascari chicane towards the end. Then, but in 9 laps to come from P7 to win the race, that's no easy task. So yeah, I think it's got to go to Strobel.
Yeah, definitely, I could not agree more with that choice, and it's always a good time before the main race to go then to our beloved Switch chat, of course. 20 of you watching along at the moment. We've got Billy the Lad who says, "How's me Tiddlewank doing?" Well, he was doing all right. he was doing decent until retiring on the last lap then of the sprint. So he's P16 for the main race, but we'll see if he can improve from there. I'm sure he can get back into the top 10. We've got our partners at Fair Play Racing League then saying, nice to see Zilla doesn't ready up here. We'll say less on that one. Yeah. Yeah, fair enough. Henker's saying, pain again, as he had issues ending the sprint race on the start at the back for the main race. Jimmy Dog saying, Zilla P2, let's go. Not quite P2, but P9. Good recovery in the sprint then.
I think that was in relation to Zilla being P2 in the Drivers' Championship.
All right, well, maybe I don't think he'll be P2 in the championship if he doesn't find a way to improve it in pace a little bit for the main race. And that's about it, really. Diamond saying he didn't have his ERS on for his qualifying laps then, so that's not the greatest. Tiddlewink there saying was good P6 in quali, but then got hit on track. Okay, that's a shame. Laws are the Division 2 driver, says what a sprint. His race prediction is Drobel winning the main race as well. I don't think many people would disagree with that one after the performance we have just seen them. But anything can happen, and we could have seen plenty of instance in that sprint race where we were fortunate not to then, as the drivers will take us away on a formation lap once again, and it is Drobel leading the field once again then, as we can look at the tyres now that the field have opted for at the start of this race, and only 2 drivers this time round going different to the rest of the field. Then we've got LWS Yorkie on the hard tyres from P6, and Jock then at the back of the field also on the hard tyres, TJ.
I can understand Jock getting on the hard tyres, being so far back, but Yorkie being on the hard tyres in P6, I feel that's a mistake. He's obviously in for the long run here. Hopefully there's no safety cars. I'm touching wood here. But yeah, the hard tyres gets good as you start racing round on it, but it's going to take 5-6 laps when tyres really come into it, and the medium runs around him, I think he'll get swallowed up.
Yeah, definitely. But he'll be hoping for a safety car a bit later on then, you'd imagine. And it's an all Red Bull front row then, TJ, Drobel and EULR Chris. They were that way around for the sprint, although they bred with a filling of a McLaren then. A nice sandwich, 1 and 3 in the sprint races. We have Seneca and Lives then retiring from the formation lap. What do you think they do down into turn 1, TJ? I mean, of course, we know it's a bit of a long run down into turn 1, but what does EULR Chris do here, of course? He's a reserve driver tonight for Red Bull, as we see Drobel get a little bit hot on the throttle there, and he's dropped back through the pack. But what does Chris do? Does he play the team game here? Or does he stick a move on Drobel?
I think Chris is in a tricky situation here. As a reserve driver, you always want to show off your skills and what you can do, but then you don't want to, potentially ruin your teammates' race down to turn 1. So I think if there's a clear opportunity, he'll go for it. If not, I can see him sitting behind it and just hoping that Drobel doesn't pull too far ahead before DRS activates.
Yeah, definitely then, as Revenge Zilla not quite lining up in his grid box then. Mag User, you can see just in the background of the picture there then, lining up for Haas. The field now all on the grid as Jock gets disqualified at the last minute there then. But we have got all 17 making it to the grid then, just about, and we are now going to get 5 red lights for the main race here in Division 1. It is lights out and away we go then, an EULR Chris this time around, the Red Bull that gets a bit bogged down off the start. It's been a great start for Mag User then, who's looking to have a move on Drobel round the outside.
Jesus.
Contact in the background then, not quite the clean start we had last time around then, TJ. 4 cars out already.
Yeah, I mean, Chris got bogged down from the start, and I think Grounding Yorkie tried to make a move on the outside of him, and both of them tried to do it at the same time, left each other no space. Someone spun the other one into the wall, and they bounced back into the track and just were basically a bowling ball into the other drivers who were sitting ducks. That is really unfortunate, and I am interested to get a on board of whoever that was. But I think both Alpha and Male boys there very stupid of what they tried to do.
Yeah, that is not ideal from the drivers then. Not quite the start, as I said, that we had then in the sprint race. Drobel still leads the way. We did see Chris get quite bogged down. He's back into P5. Very unfortunate, you'd have to say, for Johnny Vane, who's just not had the luck then at the end of the sprint and then the start of the main race as well. Sniz, LWS Yorkie grounds them both Alfa Romeos out, and as you can see, it is a full safety car then, and it had to be with those 4 drivers out already. And Revengula into the pits then, TJ.
Yeah, he had some contact with, I think it was Prem. So I think he's coming to serve his 5-second time penalty plus set hards on and go long while they're behind the safety car, which is very sensible from the AlphaTauri driver.
Yeah. Revengula onto the hard tyres. He was pretty much at the back anyway, so gets rid of that penalty and will now take a set of hard tyres. Well, he'll try and take them to the end, you'd imagine, but it's a bit of a tall order then on lap 2. As we go then to our Twitch chat, we've got it all going off between Silverside Boy, David Lawface and Fair Play Racing League. Not too sure what's going on there. Sniz wanting a bit of a restart, and well, you'd have to say TJ was very unlucky, and you know, I'd love to give you a restart, Sniz, but unfortunately I think, as David Lawface says, there's only 4 drivers out of the 17 that are racing that are out. It is very unfortunate to see that many people out, considering how clean of a sprint race we had, but I don't think we can quite call a restart for that, TJ. Maybe if a couple more were in the wall, we'd think about it, but yeah, I don't think we can, unfortunately for him, call one of those just now.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think if we got another 2 or 3 drivers out at the same instant, then yeah, we'd be calling a restart for definite, but it is unfortunate, Sniz. I do feel for you. But yeah, I think with the 13 drivers in, I think it'd be harsh to call a restart for the drivers that made it through the turn, well, even the turn 1 incident, it was the starting line incident.
Yep, definitely. So we have still got 13 runners. Fortunately, it could have been a lot worse, and we could have been having to restart this race, but we are going to continue then, and Drobel is going to continue being at the front of the pack then, as he was when he finished the sprint race, and he was for the start of the main race as well. He still leads the way ahead of Mag User. Diamond Douchey up to P3 now, Lives up to P4, hasn't had inherent pace really around here, but into the top 4 with his Aston Martin. He'll be very happy about that one then. Quickly looking at the standings, as you can see then, Alfa Romeo aren't going to move then off that 36 points in the main race anyway. They did get a couple of points in the sprint, but they're going to slip behind here, you'd imagine, TJ. And for Red Bull now, they want to be leading this one coming out of a week, and obviously this event. Do you think Chris can improve from P5, or do you think he's going to struggle to catch back up to his teammate?
No, I can see Chris pushing his way back through the 3 cars ahead of him. We saw he got decent pace in the sprint race, and he added some quality as well. It's just his race start's been letting him down. He's been bogged down twice in both race starts now, so with a bit of temperature and tyres, I think we'll see him cut through some cars and potentially make a move on 1 into turn 1.
Yeah, we did see that in the sprint as well, so we already do kind of know some of these races' pace in race conditions, of course. Drobel then coming around the parabolic now, safety car in on this lap then, and will he catch Mag User slipping here then on the restart, and now he has decided to go then. Magusa looks to try and stick with him. Diamond Dushi is very close to the rear diffuser of that Hassan when he looked to make a lunge into turn 1, but it's going to be Magusa looking to go the inside into turn 1. Will they all come through cleanly this time? Looks like they have got away with it for now, and it is Magusa then who takes the lead from Drobel. Livs has also got the jump on Diamond Dushi, and EULR Chris then stays P5.
Yeah, Chris had to back out too because the car's ahead of him, but he's definitely got the pace. And he was trying to sniff and move, which couldn't get stiff. Lexus and midfield are fighting each other here. Midfield Maestro is trying to get the move done and does into Lesmo 1. Respecting space there to the Hash driver Lexus, but he has to back out now under pressure from Tiddlewing. That was very reckless from Tiddlewing now, personally.
Oh, there's a crash as well then. Tiddlewing and Lexus both out the race, TJ. 6 retirees already. And another safety car then. And this is really kind of in stark contrast to what we saw in the sprint race then. A third of the field out already.
Yeah, I mean, from what I saw on board of that, I think Tiddlewink was a bit ambitious on the move he tried doing to Lesmo too. He tried to send it and late on Lexus, and yeah, he just made the contact, and I think that was very reckless from Tiddlewink personally.
Yeah, and not what you want to see really. Tiddlewink then in the wars in both the sprint and the main race. But we know he has got pace, so there is potential for him in that Williams to come back stronger next week, of course. But for now, we have got 11 runners left, then we are 5 laps in on this 27 lap main race here at Monza. And we've got more drivers in the pit lane than TJ, so it looks like Livs, Chris, Midfield Maestro all pitting for the hard tyres. Revengula back in to put his mediums on.
Yeah, I think Livs, Chris and Midfield Maestro can try to go to the end from this point. I think the hard tyres will do it. Revengula pitting, putting the mediums on, he's committing himself to a second pit stop. Perhaps wants to try to get some pace through the grid, but he'll have to go back on some hard tyres, I imagine. But this is interesting to see what Diamond, Dribble and Magus will do, because they'll know with them medium tyres, the pace will start dropping, whereas the likes of Livs, Chris and Midfield Maestro, they'll start off slow, but their pace will come through in the next 2 or 3 laps, and they might get the undercut to work.
Yeah, definitely. You've got to think now about the reverse strategy. At this point, Magusa, Drobel, Diamond Dushi and Seneca, the top 4, all on 4 lap old mediums. Jock on the hard, started on those hard tyres, and he's done well then to avoid all the drama and get up to P5. Now then, Henker's Prem Livs. Chris, just to say that Henker's actually matching his teammate then into the pit. And TJ Revengezilla into the pit once again. You can only imagine for the hard tyres.
Yeah, he must have had a front wing change on the first time round. Yeah, he's had a front wing change here. So the team didn't change front wing the first time round. Very poor from the AlphaToy team there, but he's gone on to the soft tyres now.
Yeah, so yeah, definitely committing himself, you'd say, to a 2-stop then.
Yeah, definitely. He's definitely got to come back into the pits. I imagine he'll have to run around on these now and perhaps go to the hard tyres.
Definitely. As we are now on to lap 6. The safety car should be in on this lap. And, well, it's almost, CJ, was almost only enough finishes to hand points out there. 11 on track at the moment, and as we're going to hit the quarter mark, 25% of this race. Seneco and P4 now. This is a real good chance then for some of those drivers that haven't quite got off the mark as they wanted to this season, like Seneco, like Jock, like Prem as well, who need to get a few points on the board. This is a big opportunity for them though.
Yeah, definitely. They've got to get their heads down and keep it clean when they meet those medium tyres. They'll obviously get the advantage later on in the race when they go into the hards, and they'll have the better tyre life towards the end. So yeah, it's a fantastic chance for these guys to try and do something. Um, but we'll be keeping a close eye on the likes of Lives, Chris, midfield marshals. The safety car calls very late.
Very late indeed. We just see Drobo have to swerve out the way there. I think
Oh,
there's been contact there. Jock hit the back of Seneco, and they're all slowing down for this safety car. It was a very late call by the safety car, you'd have to say. And Jock then rear-ending Seneco and into the pits, and you could only imagine for some repairs. But I'm not quite sure what happened there, TJ. I think with how late that safety car was, some of them were really caught off guard there.
yeah, I think that as well. I think Drobel had to slam his brakes on to obviously build that gap to the safety car, and yeah, I think that just continued all the way back, and an absolute shame that the EA can't give more notice for when a safety car is actually going to come in.
Yeah, Jock then into the pits onto some medium tyres. He'll look to take those till the end now, so it's not all over for him in that Alpine. And of course, he's P11 in a P11 race, so one more retirement would give him a point then. So every motivation to carry on for now then. It's still Magusa that leads the way from Drobel then after the safety car restart. Diamond Douchy as well, pushing the top two along. Lives has dropped back slightly on those hard tyres. But for the most part, the top 10 at least, all close together on track and all look like they got away cleanly.
Yep, definitely. As Zale is making moves on the hard tyres, on the midfield master is just. I'm not quite sure what's happened here. Zale looked like he was a sitting duck then. But he made the move on Henkers. The midfield master just gone flying past. I think Zale might have an issue here. Yeah, Zale's diving back into the pits.
Angela into the pit lane then. So we believe he might have some issues. TJ was watching it closely there at what was happening. Is it another front wing? It is another front wing.
He must have taken it off as he tried to overtake Henkers, I'm assuming. But that's an absolute shame. In revenge, Zilla is pretty much done for this race without another safety car.
Back out on track then, right at the back of the field. Jock now into P10 after his adventures on that safety car restart. So back in the points for him. But yeah, big shame for Revenge then, who probably does need a safety car, as you mentioned. But of course, less drivers racing means less chance of a safety car. But it does look like then, TJ, in all of this madness, as we come up to a third distance, and we are still going to have a fight for the win. Magusa, Drobel and Diamond all very close together on track at the moment.
Yeah, he really needs to start putting some time up between them. I'm looking back at the guys that pitted on the hard tyres under the safety car. Perez is absolutely flying and catching Lives at a dramatic rate here. Henk as a midfield maestro putting times in as well. I know that the top three will have advantage of the hard tyres when they decide to pit, but it's a big task for them to try and claw the ways back into this and hope they can bring that gap back down once they pit.
Definitely then. Chris, it should be said, the only one in the field with a penalty at the moment, and it is a 5-second penalty. I don't know how he got it, if you want to check the race director, TJ, or not, because I don't think it'll let you back out the race director, to be honest, so we'll just leave it and we'll just guess that it was speeding in the pit lane or something. Has he pitted yet? Yeah, he has. So we'll say it's speeding in the pit lane.
There we go.
Chris,
speed in the pit lane.
How dare you, Chris? How dare you speed in the pit lane? EULR Chris then. P5 at the moment for Red Bull, looking to try and get back onto the podium at the moment. But it's now Drobel then, who is looking all over the back of Magusa then. Drobel P2 at the moment, started this race on pole, started the sprint race on pole, won the sprint race of course in doing that, and Drobel then gets ahead of Magusa way before the braking zone with that DRS assistance then, and he's back into the lead, TJ, as behind him his teammate also making a move into turn 1.
Yeah, well before the braking zone as well, got a fantastic exit out of the parabolica, and pretty much did it as they crossed the DRS activation line. So Chris is absolutely flying and Queen Air in front of him. It won't take him long to get the back onto the back of Diamond here.
Yep, definitely then, as we have got a new subscriber on our Twitch, TJ LWS Yorkie, subscribing at tier 1, maybe with his prime sub, I don't know. But thank you very much for that, LWS Yorkie. You join an elite list of viewers, as you can see on the right hand side there. Nigel Pickle, Diamond, David Lowface, and LWS Yorkie, our most recent subscribers. So thank you very much. As we go back to the action, and it's now LAR Lives then trying to retake that pole place from Chris. At the moment, he is within half a second of the Red Bull, and of course, will get the DRS assistance because of that, TJ. But you have to say, Chris has shown some pace here after the safety car, and you'd expect him to close up to the top 3 now.
Yeah, he would. He is pulling that gap down. It was 2 seconds to Diamond on the previous lap. It's now down to 1.3. So it definitely won't be long before he gets into DRS range. As Mag usually takes the lead of this race down to turn 1. I didn't quite see that move, but looked like it was side by side going into turn 2.
Yeah, it was a fairly routine overtake from Matthews and then outbreaking Drobel and into the lead of the race then as Henkers makes a move also on Senetco then, and Senetco now looks like he's going to get passed by midfield Maestro as well. Those 10 lap old mediums perhaps feeling worse for wear on that Ferrari at the moment, and tries to defend the move up the inside but got tagged slightly there, in Prem also getting past Senetco then down to P9 now, but still very much in the points at the moment and fighting with the Williams of Prem once again, and retakes a place. Fantastic there by the Ferrari and gets back into P8.
Yeah, fantastic from Ferrari there, considering the disasters just had from the past couple of corners. So we'll wait and see what he does there. If he can close back down at DRS Smith from Maestro. But speaking of DRS, as expected, Chris is all over the back of Diamond here. I'm not sure where he's cut off and moved on to turn 1, but we'll jump forward to Drobel, who's got DRS on Mag User. He's also too far back unless he decides to make a late lunge on his brakes here. No, decides to bear against it, and they stick 1-2 as Chris closes the gap, but also decides not to make a move.
Yeah, Chris then remains P4 for now, and Lives is also in this fight as well now for third place in the race at the moment then, TJ. These medium runners out in front, Mag User, Drobel and Diamond Duchy then. When are we expecting to see them into the pits, given we've had a couple of safety cars
in? I'd expect to see them in the next... it depends what they try to do with the strategy here. I think they could potentially stretch it to get to the soft tyres and on the lower fuel. But I think that might be asking a bit too much. Personally, I'd expect maybe another 2-3 laps and perhaps come in for set hards and run them down for 12 laps or so. But I think it depends what the drivers are trying to achieve here and how much they want to be on them softs at the end.
Yeah, definitely. And you think they might be thinking about stretching them, given the position they find themselves in. Only a couple of seconds ahead of EULR Chris and Lives as well, who both you'd think wouldn't have to pit before the end of the race as we reach half distance. And we've got some fairly routine overtakes once again back up front. Drobel ahead of Mag User once more as the fight behind them settles down slightly. These two swapping places as we've got Senetco then in the pits on lap 12, TJ.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. I do think pit windows open from now to about lap 15. You get time for them hard tyres to warm up and bed them in. So Senetco is probably doing it at the perfect time here. But he's obviously dropped back quite a bit of the grid as well. And we're going to give Revenge Zeal some company.
Yeah, some company and some, you'd imagine, entertainment then now at the back of the field. And let's see if Senetco can hold on to that P10, as we have got then EULR Chris with the DRS on Diamond Duchy here and makes the move then up into the Ascari chicane. Can Diamond Dushi hold on here? Struggling with battery levels though at the moment, and that might hinder him in this fight with EULR. Chris then looks to back out of it then into the final corner. Will this invite Livs to perhaps make a move on the Alpine? It does just look like those medium tyres have given up, and he's also thought that and come into the pits then, TJ.
Yeah, I don't think it's on before we see the top two come into the pits either. They really need to pit within either this lap or next lap to stand a chance of clawing this gap back to Chris and Livs. As it stands, these two are pretty much clear. Well, officially, Livs is a provisional race winner as it stands currently.
Yeah, factoring in that penalty for Chris then would indeed give us Livs as the race winner once again in Division 1. And he's now trying to get past the Red Bull driver on track, not just on the timing screens. And he's all over the back of him at the moment as they've been freed then from Diamond Dushi, who's rejoined the race then in P7, just ahead of his Alpine teammate in P8 then. So Alpine looking for a good chunk of points at the moment, along with the Aston Martin and Red Bull drivers, it should be said. Those three teams having a very good race so far then. Oh, and I think we've just had Chris there run very far wide out of the Ascari. He went through an advertising board, I think it was, on the outside of the corner, and that has invited Livsen back ahead into P3 as Drobel into the pits and leaving Mag User out in the lead on his own. And will Chris now look to try and retake that second place now after getting it all wrong? And it looks to be into the braking zone. Chris has managed to get back P2.
Yeah, that was easy for Chris with the straight line speed like Red Bull. And hopefully you can keep it ahead of him this time. Interesting that Maggies hasn't pitted. I think Drobel's done the correct thing here. I do think when Maggies pits, we'll see Drobel ahead. Given I was going to say how quick he warms on tyres up, but I would expect to see Drobel ahead of Maggies when he decides to pit.
Well, we've got some fantastic racing here, TJ, but we might not have close battles up and down the grid, unfortunately, like we had in the sprint, but we have got for P10 then, Revengula and Seneca. They've been side by side now for about half a lap, and they're coming down into turn 1. Seneca looks to give Zilla a bit of the shoulders there into turn 1, and does get his elbows out, and makes it back up into P10. The AlphaTauri will have to settle once again behind the Ferrari, but now gets the run on him, coming down into the chicane, and at the end of Sector 1, looks to go up the inside of the Ferrari, and who's going to come out on top as they're still side by side then. I think they've been side by side for nearly an entire lap here, all over P10. This has been fantastic racing. Seneca back ahead for now, as we're going to have a look again then up to the Ascari chicane, whether the DRS will help Revengilla, who is on 8 lap older hard tyres, it should be said, and does then look to get the move as Mag User has come into the pits. Revengilla back ahead, TJ, but that fight over 10th place lasted an entire lap.
Yeah, it did. As I'm just on board with Drobel, as Mag User comes out the pits, Mag User comes across Drobel off the break early. There's been contact between the two drivers. Drobel has lost time there. I think Mag User was trying to make a little bit too hard on cold tyres and just caught Drobel off a little bit too much. I'd be surprised if Mag User hasn't got some sort of side pod damage from that.
Yeah, look like Mag User just turned a little bit too tightly there, not quite as much room, almost Hamilton Verstappen vibes through there, but unfortunately this time the Red Bull doesn't have a car. Isn't going over the top of another car, I should say. And Drobel is able to carry on then, and I'm sure with the pace that he's got, he'll be straight on to the back of Mag User in no time at all. And what that has meant then is now we have a new leader of this race. EULR Chris then takes the lead after Mag User comes into the pits then, and with 12 lap older hard tyres, TJ, and 11 laps left of this race now, it's a race against time, you'd say, for Mag User and Drobel to try and get back up to the podium positions, but all this squabbling between the pair of them is not going to help them out in doing so.
No, it's not at all. They need to work together here and get the heads together if they want to try to get back up on some podium places. expect it. It's a lot of time to make up in just 10 laps now. As Drobel's going to go for a move on Maguire. Yeah, Maguire concedes that. But yeah, this battling needs to stop because they're just slowing each other down.
Yeah, dribble back ahead once again then of the Haas into what is now P5 as Lives then is all over the back of Chris for the lead on track at the moment. So while those two are scrapping down in P5 and P6, we might have a scrap between the top two here then as Lives with the DRS looks to try and make a move into the Skyrim chicane, but he's not close enough this time. He's got a lot more battery than the Red Bull ahead of him. That could play into his hands in this fight. But if we have a look then at the gap at the moment, there's a yellow flag. I think Drobel's had a moment, TJ, with Mag User.
Yeah, the eyes. I'm not quite sure what happened. I missed it. Drobel's dropped behind. Diamond's our opportunity on Drobel to manage to stick with him.
I should say, TJ, yeah, Drobel's got no front wing.
Oh no.
This is absolutely catastrophic then for Drobel, who looks then to be having a race really for the podium positions, and contact between himself and Mag Hughes, and he's come off much worse than the Haas. It'll be very interesting to see at the end of this race just what happened there, but he does then pull into the pits and in his Red Bull chooses to retire from the race in TJ and will not be happy with that incident.
No, hopefully we can get some sort of what happened inside loop. But yeah, that's disastrous from the Red Bull driver. If we were talking up saying that they could potentially be leading the constructors championship and Drobel could be head of the drivers championship, and neither going to happen now. And yeah, I imagine Drobel's have some harsh words for what happened.
Yeah, it might be handbags between them two in the chat later on then. And we have got in Division 1 now a new race leader in EULR Chris in his first race in TTL, then still ahead of Lives on track but not on penalties. And now you'd have to say TJ Mag User is by himself on the track. 8 laps left to go of this race, and well, surely he can't plug that gap. It's over 20 seconds now, so surely it's between these two drivers for the win.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get the gap to leader. Yeah, so Mag uses 19 seconds behind, and he definitely is going to pull that gap down to the leaders. In what 8 laps is it now? So yeah, the guys picked on the safety cars worked out for him. And them staying out is ruined their strategy. So yeah, it is a battle between his top two now. He got Chris is trying his hardest to try to break the DRS, but I'm assuming he lives in this, but he just can't break it.
Definitely Lives doing all he can then, and all he needs to do is stay within 5 seconds of Chris as it stands to take the win today. And you'd have to say, TJ, even though Mag User is in P5, he could still get up to potentially P4 or even P3 if he has a phenomenal final few laps of this race. At the moment, obviously leading the championship 61 points at the moment in his Haas, and he's only going to really lose points to both Henkers and Lives, and only a handful at this point, and he's got about 30 points on the two Aston Martins in the championship. So it's still, if it was to finish like this, a good day in the office, you should say, for Mag User, considering where he could have been if he was in Drobel's position.
Yeah, definitely. As Mag User says, the fastest lap of the day, so he is trying to push for it. I mean, he could potentially get P4 here. But yeah, it's not disastrous for the Mag User at all to be finishing P4, P5. And yeah, he'll be happy he's managed to come away, assuming everything stays the way it is, as the championship leader.
Yeah, he will almost definitely be the championship leader unless Revengilla somehow finds himself winning the race and him not finishing at all. So it's still very much damage limitation for Mag User in terms of the championship if he can't get onto the podium, but he is cruising up to the back of midfield Maestro now. A couple of seconds between those drivers. We're still watching the fight out in front between Livs and EULR Chris then. And TJ, you'd have to say, really, as it stands at the moment, Livs doesn't look like he's pushing him. He knows that all he has to do is keep within that penalty at the minute in order to get the win.
Yeah, it does look that way. I think both drivers have stopped here. I know Chris is getting a lot of VRS back here, and Livs isn't really draining his battery. I think both these drivers know it's a done deal for 1-2. I think Chris might have succumbed to his fate here that he is going to be dropping to P2. So yeah, I think both drivers are just, I suppose you could say, nicely working together, making and ensuring they both finish on the top two steps.
Now, of course, there is a little bit of gamesmanship in this. Livs could get ahead of Chris, and I'm not saying intentionally back Chris up, but perhaps not go as fast as he might want to on the track. Henkers at the minute is only 10 seconds back from these two, obviously. Livs' teammate, Aston Martin, at the moment, looking to extend their championship lead in the constructors. So, will Livs be thinking of that at all, do you think, at this stage, or do you think he'll just be concentrating on the win and not looking to do anything too rash?
I think he's just concentrating on getting the win and doing nothing too rash. It's going to be a great points haul for the Aston Martin team if it stays like this. They'll pull miles ahead of the constructors, and they'll pull them into the champion. Or actually, put Livs into the championship battle. As Maggie gets moved on midfield Maestro. But yeah, I think Livs just every time a loop happening, he's braking early. He's not doing anything rash. I generally do think he's just concentrating on keeping it clean and ensuring he gets P1. Perhaps not on track, but he'll finish P1.
Yeah, definitely. Then Henkers at the moment, third on the road. Now he's going to have a charging Haas behind him, looking to get back onto the podium then. User 6 seconds back with 6 to go here in this round 5 of Division 1. In Season 1 in TTR, then the story really has been so far. We had an epic sprint race with anyone really taking the win, but it was Drobel who took the win in the sprint. Started well in the main race, but then had contact with a mag user, it looked like, on track, and retiring from the main race. That's invited both his teammate and Livs then to fight for the lead, and we're currently looking to see if Magusa can get back onto the podium then. With 5 to go now as Chris crosses the line. And
This has been pushing down to parabolica and broke the DRS between the two drivers. I think Chris is going to try and push these 5 seconds. He's trying to take the win. He has drained all his DRS. He hasn't got that to help him out currently. But I think he's trying to break the DRS range to try give himself a chance of potentially pulling the 5 seconds in the 5 laps.
Livs still with plenty more ERS in his tank at the moment, so he could use that to try and keep within that gap. As I just say that, he's gone through the chicane and got it horribly wrong and dropped about half a second there to Chris, but keeps it pointing in the right direction. You could be right here, TJ. Chris looks like he's found a little bit of pace from somewhere here, trying to get the hurry up, and as you said, trying to break that 5-second gap. As it stands, that's kind of really the only fight in the field at the moment. I mean, is it doable? There'll be 4 left as they cross the line, but surely Livs won't drop more than a second a lap to Chris now.
I can't imagine so, but the issue is, if obviously we don't know what the corner cut warnings are or anything at this point. Livs is going to try and push to keep up with Chris, which could force Livs into cutting a corner and picking a 3-second time penalty up. So in reality, Chris only needs to pick up the 2 seconds. So I think Chris has played this very. I mean, if he's thought about this, obviously, but he could be thinking very clever here.
Yeah, definitely. Then, as we do have 4 to go now of this race, Livs just getting that gap down slightly. Magusa 2, he's now 4 seconds back from Henkers, but needs to get a little bit of a hurry up if he does want to try and pass the Aston Martin before the end of this race. Then you should say, really, TJ, the Alpines 6th and 7th at the moment. Jock has done a fantastic job on those mediums. 17 laps old, looking to take them to the end. And it looks like he's going to be rewarded for that with P7.
Yeah, I think I don't want curse jockey, but you are looking at puncture territory now on these medium tires. I mean, if you're riding on board with him, you can see the line on the tires where the tread is just gone. So he is borderline puncture territory for definite, and he'll be wanting to just ease these tires around the next couple of laps.
Yeah, not looking very shiny anymore, those medium compound Pirellis, but doing a good job at the moment then to try and hold on to that P7 as the driver's very spread out at the moment in the field then, so not too much fighting going on at all. Livs has now dropped 1.6 seconds back from Chris at the moment, who still leads the way on track. And well, he probably needed a safety car at some point, TJ, to give us a bit more action, and unfortunately the best racing tonight came in that 9-lap sprint earlier. But it looks as though with 3 to go, if we are going to get 10 finishes, you should say really well done to all of them for making the end of this race. We have seen some fairly controversial incidents, you should say. Not like Division 1, really. We've had some fantastic racing in Division 1 so far this season. Pretty much every race has been really good in terms of both standards and wheel-to-wheel action. But you do get those races sometimes which throw up a bit of a red herring, and this is probably one of them. But, you know, as I said, they'll all be rewarded for finishing the race with getting some points.
Yeah, definitely. As you say, Division One's been very clean. It's been fantastic battling. And I think it might be the nature of the track. It's the tempo of speed after all. People are running less downforce and trying to risk moves because it's hard to, other than DRS zone 1, potentially to make any moves. So people are trying to push the limits a little bit too much. And unfortunately, as you say, red herrings do happen. And it's nothing against the Division 1 drivers. And I do expect the standards to return to normal next week. And yeah, congrats to the 10 drivers that have stuck it out. At one point, I was worried that perhaps Evangelista or Seneca would go in the pits and retire, but I'm glad to see him stick it out and go to the end.
Yeah, definitely. Then we'll have finishers in all positions, it looks like, in the top 10. Fingers crossed then, with a lap and a half to go here. It's still Chris leading the way. He hasn't managed to build that gap up to Livs at the moment. Be interesting to see actually what that 5 seconds is for, whether he'll look to perhaps get it removed at the end of the race. Potentially, you never know. But for now, it's not quite going to happen. And he will lead us on to the last lap. Then Livs really unable to, well, beat him on track, but he didn't need to at the end. He was being clever about it. Mag User 2 looks like he is just going to fall short then of a podium unless he can find a way to get into the DRS for one last time then down the pitch straight, but it doesn't look like he's going to be able to in that Haas, and might just have to settle for P4 then. Midfield Maestro top 5 finish as well. He's kind of gone under the radar. You'd have to say a lot of the drivers really that are left in the race have gone under the radar because they've not been involved in the controversial incidents we've seen.
Yeah, that's right. And as you say, that the track's a bit spread out as well. So, we've been concentrated on the battles on track, and like I say, it's nothing against the guys we haven't been given coverage to. It's just, it's a controversial instance, and there is only small pockets of battles on track currently.
Yeah, Mag User is going to try and push Henkers all the way to the line, into the flag then, trying to get that gap down to under a second, and he just manages it then. So I'm just wondering whether he's going to have one last lap push through this DRS zone now and out of the Ascari chicane. Half a second the gap here. He doesn't have all the ERS in the world, but nor does Henkers, so pretty evenly matched in that respect then. But we have to then flick quickly to the front of the field as EULR Chris then in his first race in TTL is going to take the win on track. We'll see what happens with that penalty post-race. LAR Lives is going to take P2, but it's at the back It is Henkers and Mag User then fighting it out and into the Parabolica. They're going to come up to the line. It looks like Henkers is just by less than a 10 going to get the run on Mag User. Henkers, his first podium in TTR, then Mag User has to settle for P4. Midfield Maestro P5 for Mercedes. Tonight, the Alpine 6th and 7th in Diamond Duchy and Jock. It's Prem in P8 as he comes over the line. He won't quite get Jock on those 20 lap old medium tyres. Revengilla not quite had the race he would have wanted to tonight, but does take home P9 for AlphaTauri then, and 2 points to go along with that. And Seneco 2 will add to his 8 points he's got already so far this season, with the singular points for finishing in P10 and a little celebration weaving across the line there. But that was your top 10, and we'll of course watch the podium now, in which we will see Livs hold that trophy. For now, we'll have a look at the race director now, actually, TJ, to see what that penalty was for with Chris. Hopefully. But there you have it. There is your race winner for now. Anyway, Livs will receive the winner's trophy, a double Aston Martin podium. Then they will extend their lead in the Constructors' Championship as well. They were tied for points with Haas, but with only Mag User finishing in the points for Haas today, well, it's safe to say they will hold a significant lead then into round 6. And we'll go then through the other results, the classified results. We've done the top 10. That's not the results. There we go. That's one both combined. There we go. Drobel then P11 after his collision with Mag User. I can't imagine he'll be too happy about that. But we'll get hopefully some insight into what happened there after the race. Lexus P12 for Haas today then, unable to finish in the points and give them some points in their fight with Aston Martin. Tiddlewink P13, he was unlucky very much in the sprint and the main race. Hope to see him back next week. He's definitely got some pace in Division 1. Johnny Vane likewise was running very much in the top 4 for most of the sprint. Unfortunately though, unable to really take part in the main race, along with Yorkie, Sniz and Groundsy, who all retired pretty much off the line then. And CJ, there's only one more order of business, of course. We've seen that Drobel was your driver of the sprint, but who is your driver of the main race?
I mean, I'm looking at both Aston Martin boys here. Liv's did a fantastic job keeping up with Chris and getting the race win. Hank did a fantastic job finishing P3. I am torn for too much driving to give it to.
We ain't got all night, CJ.
I am. This is nothing against Livs. I am going to give it to Hankers. I know Livs did a fantastic job of keeping up with Chris and taking the race win. But Hankers started P14, managed to avoid all the chaos of race start and pulled the strategy off to finish P3 and only just ahead of Mag User as well. So, yeah, Hankers gets my driver of the day for the main race.
Yeah, I definitely could not disagree with that as well. Both Aston Martins very good by both of them, but Henkers, of course, with that first podium in TTR, then takes the 15 points in for him. That's all we got time for this evening. Thank you for joining me for tonight's race, TJ. It's been a pleasure as always to commentate alongside you.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure as well. It's been a little while since we commentated together, but hopefully we get back a bit more into the regular cycle. But yeah, it's been a pleasure. It's been a fantastic sprint race and a chaotic main race, let's say. But I look forward to next week.
Yeah, very much then. But there is, of course, still some more action to come this week. Then we have got tomorrow night our Division 2 drivers will give us another sprint race around Monza, same time, that one, 8 o'clock UK time once again, round 5 there, that championship hotting up as well at the moment then, with Viking Beast taking the lead only by 4 points from Belente after his race win last week. So will he be able to convert another victory in TTL tomorrow? And then our partners over at the URC are racing this week, and they've got one of my favourite tracks, to be honest with you, Brazil. This week they are racing Friday and Saturday, with their first race this Friday the 14th at 7:30 then, with only 2 rounds left of their championship now. And also our partners over at Fair Play Racing League then, it's round 13 for them this week in Hungary. Another one of my favourite tracks. It's a great week for me, really. Monza, Brazil and Hungary, it's fantastic, but only good tracks to either commentate or race on this week. And you can watch that live at twitch.tv/Fairplay, FP Racing League, I should say, not Fairplay RL, that's the old one, I think. But as I said, that's all we got time for. I'll be back tomorrow on commentary. I think I'm joined by everyone's beloved Revengezilla tomorrow, so be sure to tune in at the same time tomorrow to see what the Division 2 boys can serve up for us. But until then, it's goodbye from me and TJ, and take care.